Well, a little earlier I spoke to the Sentencing Minister, Jake Richards, who today was announcing plans to toughen sentencing for those who attack police and prison officers. I did ask him about that, but as you'll see, I started the interview by asking him about those unemployment figures. Jake, good to see you again.
Good evening.
Let's talk about what you're planning to do in terms of tougher sentences. Talk us through why you think this is necessary.
Well, look, we believe, and this government believes, that the full force of the law has to be brought down on anyone who is violent or offensive towards senior public servants. And what I mean by that is police officers, prison officers, probation officers, people who do really difficult jobs in tough circumstances. And what we're doing today is about a small number of cases, thankfully, a very small number of cases, but where we have prison officers who are killed because of the work they do, we think it's right that those offenders should receive the toughest punishment, which means a whole life order, which means they'll never be released.
The one thing, of course, to keep prison officers safer, though, is to invest in our prison system. How much is the Ministry of Justice budget going to grow over the next 5 years?
Well, on prison security in particular, we've just announced an investment of £40 million to improve security measures, £10 million for protective equipment for prison officers. So, look, we need investment in our prison service. When I go out and about and go to prisons and speak to prison officers, the biggest issue that they face is one of capacity. Because when the prisons are bursting at the seams, as they were when we came into the government last summer, that makes everything more difficult. Security, getting prisoners out of cells for meaningful activity, which helps broadly in the prison community. And so we are dealing with those capacity issues with two main ways. One, we're building more prisons than ever before, the biggest prison building programme since the Victorian era. And two, we're introducing sentencing reforms that will start to ease demand over time. That is the best way we can look after our prison officers and make our prisons safe.
So, is it fair to say this, and I ask this from a complete point of ignorance, that you are effectively lessening sentences on more minor crimes, but increasing them on what you might view as more serious crimes? Is that fair?
Well, look, it's a bit more complex than that, but look, yes. So what we're trying to do is we don't think that short-term sentences are working in this country. And we're not the only ones that think that. The evidence shows it very clearly. So if you get a sentence of less than 12 months in prison at the moment, then reoffending rates are of nearly 70%. So they're not working. They're costing the taxpayer more money. They're not confronting reoffending. They're leading to more crime on our streets. So what we're introducing is a presumption against short-term sentences, not banning them altogether. They have their place, in particular in domestic abuse cases. But we think that we should be urging the judiciary to look at alternative options for those short-term sentences, which aren't working for anyone. But today we've introduced tougher sentences for the absolute worst offenders. And look, when I speak to my constituents, that strikes me as what people want to see. They don't want people to be thrown in prison for a few weeks. They want, for the toughest, most serious offences, really tough punishment, but smarter sentencing for those lesser offences to really make sure that those people don't do it again.
Now, there isn't much prison capacity at the moment as it stands, and as you guys say, you are building more prisons. When are you expecting this to actually, this capacity to come on stream? I mean, if you're on to these tougher sentences now, when potentially are you going to see the availability where you can lock people up for longer?
Well, we're starting to see that green shoots of recovery thanks to the prison building programme that this government has implemented already. So almost 3,000 places have been built in 18 months of a Labour government. That is opposed to just 500 extra places over 14 years of a Conservative government. So look, there was a complete dereliction of duty by the Conservatives. We are aiming to fix that. We are beginning to see some capacity. There's still huge challenges, and I'm not for a minute suggesting this is solved. And that is why the sentencing bill, which needs to receive royal assent next year, is so important to make sure that the prison system is sustainable, not just for this year, not just next year, but for decades to come.
OK, just very finally on this, and I don't want to be too flippant about this, but also can you make promises that you're not going to release some of these prisoners early? Because that's happened quite a lot recently.
Well, there have been errors in release, and any single error in a release is not acceptable. That's why we've announced a review of the processes which have led to these errors, and that will be reporting in February next year. I know the Deputy Prime Minister met with Dame Lynn Owens, who is leading that review, a very senior and respected former police constable. All I would say is this is a symptom of a failing prison system over a long period of time. So again, under the last government, there were 800 errors in release that we know about. And look, I'm not saying it's acceptable that it's happening under our watch, and that's why we're taking action.
I just want to touch on one other thing today, because it's been notable. I mean, you've obviously, maybe justifiably so, blamed the prison situation on the previous Conservative government. Is that also true of today's unemployment rate, which has gone up yet again from 4.1% when you guys got in to now 5.1%. Youth unemployment at 16%, a 10-year high. Whose fault's that?
Well, there's still a lot of work to do on it. There's 350,000...
Well, no, it's not the work to be done. It's going in the opposite direction. It's getting worse under your watch.
There's 350,000 more people in the labour market than there were at the last general election. That obviously has an effect on the statistics. But look, I'm not saying today's statistics are a rallying cry, and we've got to do more. We've invested over £1 billion in apprenticeships. The Secretary of State for Work and Pensions will be setting out a new year, new plans to ensure that we get young people back into work. Look, it's not just a financial problem when young people aren't in work or education. It's a moral crisis because we have too many young people in our country who, after leaving education, after leaving school or college or university, aren't getting the structure and discipline of work that they need. We're the Labour Party. We believe in work.
Well, that's my point.
And that's why we need to get more people.
So what do you say
back
to
into
businesses, hundreds of them, thousands of them, who say, this is really simple. This is down to national insurance rises, it's down to increases in the minimum wage, and it's down to the hokey-cokey budget, where there was lots of uncertainty. I mean, literally, businesses who actually employ people, that's what they say.
No, I understand that, and I speak to small businesses about these issues
Do you
all the
agree
time
with
in my
them?
constituency. Look, there were necessary and fair decisions to make around tax at this budget and the budget last year because the public finances need that stability. And by the way, if we don't make those difficult decisions...
You created loads of uncertainty in the lead up to the budget.
If we don't make difficult decisions in terms of public finances, it's very easy to try and be popular when it comes to tax and spend. But then if the economy gets out of your control, as we saw which happened under the Conservative Party, that's worse off for young people, it's worse off for businesses, it's worse off for everyone. And so, look, difficult decisions were made. There's much more work to be done to get young people back into work. We're seeing investment in apprenticeships, but there is also welfare reforms that will need to take place to make sure that we encourage and incentivise people back to work.
Just finally on this, you know, I think sometimes governments have to own things. You know, as I say, unemployment is up. The economy has shrank essentially every single month for the last 4 months. It's now also shrank half the time Labour has been in power. So much for economic growth. And there are 10.4 million people of working age who report a disability in Britain today. I mean, you're right, you're the Labour Party. I mean, those figures are bad. And the worst thing is they are, on all measures, getting worse.
Well, the growth forecasts have been upgraded by the OBR at the budget.
This is the reality rather than forecast.
But look, there is a lot of work to be done. And no one for a minute is suggesting that in the first 18 months we've managed to turn the ship around. The country was in a complete mess back in 2024, not just because of Conservative mismanagement, because we had a pandemic, because of war in Europe. We were in a difficult position. That's not going to be turned around overnight. I believe this government has made really important progress.
The accusation here is that, yes, it may well have been bad, but you are making it, your government is making it worse.
I don't accept that at all, because, look, you raise certain issues. Let me come back at you some others. NHS waiting lists coming down. We promised 2 million appointments. We've managed to deliver 5 million appointments. We're recruiting more police officers to be on our streets to keep it safe. We just spoke about the prisons crisis. I mean, last summer, when we came into government, we literally had to release prisoners early because there wasn't any more space to keep our criminal justice system afloat. Okay. We're beginning to fix the problems in our country and beginning to turn things around.
OK. Jake Richards. As always, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
And Merry Christmas to you as well.